Hey folks, how's it going? $474.9 billion has been added to the national debt since January 1st. As ex-IMF official says, America now on dangerously unsustainable path. No kidding, really. All right, so this article comes from the Daily Huddle. Former Deputy Director of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, says the U.S. is now racking up debt at an extremely dangerous pace. As if we didn't already know that. Fresh data from the U.S. Treasury Department shows that the national debt rose from $33.99 trillion on January 2nd to $34.465 trillion on March 8th, an increase of more than $474.930 billion so far this year. The surging national debt has caught the attention of Desmond Lockman, an economist who served as deputy director at the IMF from 1994 to 1996. In a recent American Enterprise Institute blog post, Lockman warns that the U.S. government cannot continue piling onto its balance sheet. On one thing, everyone can agree, quote, our public finances are on a dangerously unsustainable path. One indication of our budget problems is that at a time of cyclical economic strength, when the government's budget should at least be in balance, if not in surplus, the deficit is around 6% of GDP. According to the Bipartisan Congressional Budget Office, these deficits will soon take our public debt to a record level of well over 125% of GDP, surpassing the level reached at the end of the Second World War. Lockman says if officials do not take drastic measures to correct its financial trajectory, the ballooning debt levels could force the Federal Reserve to bail out the U.S. government. Our government borrows in dollars that the Federal Reserve can always print to cover the deficit. This makes it highly improbable that our government will ever default on its debt. However, the money printing that would be required to finance our government could lead to a dollar crisis and to a surge in inflation. It could also invite the return of the bond market vigilantes and cause financial market turmoil. We're on a record path of spending in this country, and there's no sign of stopping in sight. This next article comes from Daily Huddle also. This first one was from a couple of days ago. Actually, a few days ago. That I just hadn't got around to talking about. This one I printed off last night. $167.9 billion added to national debt in 20 days, as Citadel CEO warns government spending at borderline insanity. The CEO of a $60 billion hedge fund says Americans should be alarmed about the country's rapidly expanding debt. New numbers from the Treasury Department show the national debt climbed from $34.39 trillion on March 1st to $34.56 trillion on March 20th, a rise of $167.9 billion in just 20 days. That's a lot of money to spend in 20 days, folks. That's insane. At this point, the rapid pace of the country's debt accumulation poses a major risk to America's fiscal future, according to Citadel CEO Ken Griffin. In a new CNBC interview at the International Futures Industry Conference in Florida, Griffin says the lack of daily dialogue about the growing national debt is allowing the government to borrow at a rate that's irrational and dangerous. Griffin says no outside entity can or will save the United States from a debt crisis. Quote, I think the biggest issue that's not priced in the markets right now is the sovereign risk of U.S. credit. It's not AAA anymore. I wish it were AAA. I think it's just not part of the day in and day out dialogue, and that allows Washington to continue to spend at levels that are borderline insanity at this point in the economic cycle. We're talking about a budget next year of $7 trillion. Spending is up almost 20% in 2 years. This is just out of control, and unfortunately, when your sovereign markets start to put the hammer down in terms of discipline, that could be pretty brutal. There's no country that's going to bail America out. We're going to right our own ship. There's no IMF for the United States of America. All right, so this brings me to my whole point of this video, and the reason I keep talking about our national debt. As Mr. Griffin said in this article, there's no country that's going to come to America and bail us out. You know, America's always bailing out other countries. We're sending money overseas to help every other country in the world, especially a lot of countries that for some reason hate us. Why we're sending money to them is beyond me. We're bailing everybody else out. We bail our banks out. We bail companies out, multi-billion-dollar companies that we have no business bailing out. We spend billions of dollars on people to just sit at home on their butts and not work. We're spending billions and billions of dollars bringing illegals into this country and paying them for absolutely nothing. It can't get any plainer, folks. It's out of control. It's insanity. Nobody's coming to bail us out. There's nobody that's going to step in and save us from our reckless spending. Unfortunately, we're well past the point of fixing this without causing major suffering here at home. Sorry about that, folks. No one's coming to bail us out. We can still fix this, but we would have to stop all unnecessary spending right now, cutting anything that's absolutely not necessary, and unfortunately, and as much as I hate to say this, we would probably have to raise taxes at the same time. Both of those things is going to create tremendous financial hardship and suffering for the average American. There's just no way to avoid it at this point. Even if we stopped right now, it would be extremely painful. We could do it, but I don't think our government has the fortitude or the morality at this point, or the fiscal responsibility to make these changes. I don't think that's going to happen, regardless of who gets into office. As much as people like to say Trump is going to save this country if he gets in, and there's people that think the same thing about Biden. I'm not getting into that. But even Trump spent at reckless levels. There's no way around this. We're headed for a major financial disaster in this country. And all we can do is prepare for it on an individual level, since our government seems to have no desire or willingness to make responsible decisions when it comes to our fiscal policy. That leaves it up to me and you. That leaves it up to us to take care of ourselves, because we know what's coming. We know the dangers that we're facing. This is going to be a very hard, brutal financial reckoning that we're going to get slapped in the face with. The Great Depression is nothing compared to what we're going to go through. And you need to be prepping now if you're not already. And before you even start stacking food, I know I'm going to get some kickback on this, but before you start stacking food, before you start stacking ammo and guns and what have you, pay off your debt. If you have any debt, pay that off as fast as possible. Because debt is cancer. Even in good times, debt will eat you alive, and you'll spend a fortune just on interest payments. Get rid of debt, any debt you possibly can. One of the most recommended methods for doing that is Dave Ramsey's method of paying down debt. But I would highly recommend everybody pay off debt as fast as possible And don't take out any new debt. This is not the time to be going out buying cars or buying houses or anything else like that. You shouldn't be going out and financing big, expensive, high-ticket items. You need to be paying down your debt, and then once that's done, you need to be putting money back in a cash reserve, and you need to be putting back food, and then you need to be putting back, I'm going to say it, guns and ammo for defense, because when this crisis hits us in full measure, there's going to be a lot of violence in the street. There's going to be extremely high crime rates. So you need to be prepping on all levels. You need to be prepping your own medical supplies and learning how to provide medical care for yourself and your family, because you may not have access to a doctor or a hospital, or assuming you can, you might not have the money to pay for those services. So you need to be able to provide as much medical care for yourself as you can. So food, water, medical care, guns and ammo for security. You need to be growing food and producing food if there's any way possible. If not, network with people that do. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of small local farmers that would love to have your business, and they will provide you a great product instead of buying from places like Walmart and whatever to buy all these big corporate named meat products. So look to these small producers. Look to farmers markets. Look to your neighborhood gardeners. Grow your own food. Buy long-term survival foods, long-term storage foods, and put that up. You're going to need it. I mean it, folks. We're past the point of no return. Like I said, even if our government came to its senses and decided to be 100% fiscally responsible and make the best decisions possible, even if that were the case and it happened tomorrow, this would still be brutally painful for every American. Everybody's going to suffer. Everybody's going to hurt. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It needs to, but it will never happen, because the more our government spends, the more our politicians enrich themselves. The more this government, big corporate oligarchy enriches themselves. They increase their own wallets. They increase their own bank accounts. They increase their own power at the expense of us. So no change is coming. This won't change until everything absolutely falls apart. And then they're going to leave us to pick up the pieces while they're sitting back in their mansions and in their $1 million bunkers eating steaks and drinking champagne and wine and what have you. People like you and I, we're going to be out here scratching to survive, struggling, fighting just to make it through. So prep hard, prep while you can. You still have time to prep, but you need to be doing as much as possible, as fast as possible. And the sooner you get your debt paid off, the quicker you can prep. The more stuff that you can put back to ensure security for you and your family. That's all I've got. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. And until next time, folks, as always, stay safe, keep prepping, don't get complacent. And until then, I'll catch you later.